Who doesn't love nice things anyways? Most of us want the best of the best of the best, but when it comes to a house, should we be wooed by the best house in the neighborhood? Let's find out if that house is the right one for you to call home. My name is Andrew Finney, and my passion is helping you make sense of real estate. If you need help finding a top agent near you, or if you simply want to drop me a line to say hello, my contact info is below. If you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel now and like this video. Thank you. All right, my friend, let's get honest right here, because if we're looking at that best house in the neighborhood, a lot of us are probably thinking it's begging us to buy me, buy me, buy me, right? Well, here's the thing. At the end of the day, it might be the right one for us, or maybe we're better to find a different home in the community, because where's our real estate appreciation going to go if we're already starting off at the top in the neighborhood? Sometimes it's right. Sometimes you might want to make it your own with your own renovations. Let's take a closer look at if it's right for you. The first thing to think about is, why wouldn't you want the best house in the neighborhood? Well, it depends on your purpose for buying the house. Are you buying this house as an investment? Are you buying this house as a primary owner because you want to live there? Well, if you're buying it from an investment standpoint, it's already starting off at the wrong side of the table there, being the most expensive probably in the neighborhood since it is the best one. Now, if you're buying it because you want to own it, well, let's give it some further consideration. One way to know this is to better understand your value play. And when we're talking about your value play, what we're talking about is one motivation, whether it's on the forefront of a buyer's mind or not, is this home is going to appreciate over time. Over time, I'm going to have equity built up in this property. Well, if you're starting off at the high of the market for your neighborhood by purchasing the best home in the community, what play are you making here? Is it worth it to you to have a home that has all the bells and whistles so you don't have to do it yourself out of pocket? Or is it worth it for you to want to do renovations to a property because you want to make it your own? What's your value play here? Are you an investor, or are you a home buyer that wants to live in this home? Get clear on what value you want to play out in the future. The second thing to consider here is who's going to be the next buyer. Anytime renovations are done to a property, whether you're an investor or whether you're a home buyer, you need to understand who is the next buyer for that house. And I know if you're like a first-time home buyer or a home buyer in general that intends to live in this property, you're probably thinking, Andrew, come on now. I just want the house because it's gorgeous. Why do I got to think about who's going to buy it after me? I don't even want to think about it. Right now, I only want to consider buying the house. It's a good point, but it's one of those things that you also want to consider when buying the house is, what is your resale factor going to look like in the future? We want to be clear on that up front by understanding who is attracted to that area. What is the demographic that is attracted to that area? What is the education, the income, and all that fun stuff? What close nearby amenities are there that would attract more buyers into the neighborhood? Is it going to appreciate as much as you think it will? Well, only time will ultimately tell, but we do know that real estate does appreciate historically on average over time. So consider who your next buyer is going to be as you're considering whether you want to buy the best house in the neighborhood. The third thing is knowing when the best house to buy is the best house in the neighborhood. And let me make a case in point from my own personal life here. There was a property that came on the market in 2019. And though I just bought one in 2016 and I've been renovating it and making it just the way I want, this one that came on the market in 2019 was literally like a beauty. It was a former Toll Brothers model home in Northwest Las Vegas, which is my favorite area of Las Vegas personally. I love the Northwest, so I keep buying in the Northwest. It's kind of my thing. That being said, this house was stunning. It had wainscoting, it had all the upgrades, it had all the bells and whistles, and it had a pretty hefty price tag that came along with it. So I sat there thinking about it. I was like, you know, if I put in an additional $100,000 of renovations into my existing property over the next 4 or 5 years, I could probably make it somewhat similar, but the one thing I can't change is the location of the home. And what is going to happen, Andrew, if I put in $100,000 of additional renovations on top of what I've already done in the house I bought in 2016? I would end up with an over-improved home for the area. And I thought to myself, you know what? That is not a good place to be if you're over-improved. That's how the bell curve gets set for prices and in areas when you have that best home in the neighborhood, which mine would be at that point. That's where that bell curve goes whenever that home sells, which means that my neighbors are going to benefit from the sale, but I may may not directly be able to hit the value mark that I would like to hit based upon the renovations that I've put into that house. That being said, whenever the best of the best is the best, I really wanted that house in 2019. And I gotta be honest with you, I did get with my loan officer, Bill Marin, with New American Funding here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I gave him all of my documents, everything he needs to issue a pre-approval. He issued it. The same day I got the pre-approval, that gem of a house went under contract, and I was just like, oh my, it hurt so bad to see it go, and I know that you can relate to that. That being said, I realistically would have done that for that property, and here's why. Even though it was the best house in the community, I liked the area that it was in, I liked the type of community that it was in, and I liked what the future plans were on the city of what's going on in the area. By and large, in that area, it had already been developed, so I didn't have to worry about new home construction going in across the street. There are already homes there. There was a very small street that leads into that area to begin with, so it wasn't heavily trafficked, something important to at least me whenever I'm looking at a house. So when I started looking at it, I thought, well, even though it has a hefty price tag, I'm gonna have to put a hefty amount of money into my existing home if I wanna improve it to a like-and-kind type condition. So then I thought to myself, well, maybe it is okay for me to go ahead and get this best house in the neighborhood because it already has everything done, and I'm essentially gonna be swapping out the equity that I have in my house for a house that is probably 98% of the way renovated the way that I already want, when my current house still needs quite a bit to go. Whenever you start considering these factors, and these are the thoughts going through my head as a trusted real estate advisor when assessing my own personal property, you might feel the same way too. But there are times that buying the best house in the neighborhood could be right for you, but it really comes down to one important question that I ask everybody, including myself, and that's how long do you plan to live in this house? If the answer to that question is 12, 15, 20 plus years, or heck, it's your forever home, then okay, it could make a lot of sense to buy the best home in the neighborhood. Now, if you're thinking about staying in a house for maybe 4 to 7 years and then selling and then moving into a different area, well, probably not the best idea to get the best house in the neighborhood. You can probably do better finding another home in the community that you like and just doing the renovations yourself over time so that you'll have more sweat equity in your home and you'll have more equity coming to you as a result of the sale. And then next time you can decide whether buying the best house in the neighborhood is right for you. In short, there's a list of 5 questions to ask yourself to get clear and see whether it's justified for you to buy the best house in the neighborhood. Let's take a look. The first one is you work really hard and you want to come home to an amazing house. The second one is having the best house is something that you really, really want. It's something that's very valuable and important to you and you don't want to compromise. The third is the house offers certain amenities that you're prioritized and that you can't find anywhere else in your home search, and this one has it all. Perhaps you need an elevator to accommodate a spouse with a disability, or maybe you need simply horse stables for the little equestrian in your family. All the same, this one could be the one that had it all and none of the other ones did. The fourth is, well, what can we say? You want a bomb house, and this is what you want to do. And the fifth is you want a house that has all the upgrades already done, so you don't have to go in through the blood, sweat, and tears that go into the home renovation process. Ultimately, only you can decide what's best for you. Consider it closely to make sure that you're making the right decision for you. The fourth thing to think about is, okay, if you're not gonna buy the best home, should you get the worst house in the neighborhood? Now, you may have heard other people say, hey, you know what? Getting the worst house in the best neighborhood is always a really good idea. You can put some elbow grease in there, you can renovate that house, and you're gonna have bukus of equity. Well, have you ever heard the adage that says, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. So we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for you. Buying the worst house in the community could be a good idea if it has good bones and the bones aren't broken. It could be a good idea if you have the time, the energy, and the resources available to spend on the home renovations. This could be a good idea. Or perhaps you want to look for something kind of like in the Goldilocks zone where you're in between the best and the worst, and you can do to it what you want to do to it over time. But always ask yourself before you go into home renovation mode, or when you're out shopping and you see that best house in the neighborhood, every neighborhood has one, ask yourself how long you're going to live there. And that'll help guide you to the right decision for you. The fifth thing to understand is your dream home actually falls on a spectrum. And when we're talking about a spectrum, there are certain criteria during your home search that are most important to you, that you're thinking to yourself, these are must-haves, these are non-negotiables, it must have this. Well, that would go into a spectrum. Then you have those aspects that are like, that's just not important to me at all. Maybe it has a swimming pool, and maybe your swimming pool is not your thing. And you're like, I don't need that. Or maybe it has like a 10-car garage, and you're like, I only have 2 cars, I only need a 2-car garage, right? So you get the point. But now there's all that list of things that you are negotiable on, those items that you can compromise. Consider this like your dream home spectrum, and the way that you get clear on that is number one, studying the neighborhood. Somebody around you in your home buying team, whether it's your trusted real estate advisor, your loan officer, the real estate inspector, the real estate home appraiser, somebody that you might know, or somebody that's a contractor that one of your friends or family have worked with, are going to be able to shed further insight into that neighborhood. Now, one of my pro tips here for you and best practices are to simply drive through the community where possible. Obviously, if it's gated or guard gated, it makes it a little bit of a challenge. All the same, when you go out there and you view that area, you view that home with your trusted real estate advisor, hang loose a little bit, drive up and down all the streets, kind of get a feel, get a flow, talk to some of the neighbors, and make a well-informed decision about the neighborhood and if it's really the perfect one for you by assessing your needs, your wants, and the things that you're negotiable on against the things that really just don't matter to you. Doing so will help you know where your home falls in your dream home spectrum you have in your mind. The second is to hire an expert. Of course, you wanted to hire the right trusted real estate advisor for you. Well, your right real estate advisor for you, after you Google them, you check their online ratings, their reviews, and their past sales performance, you'll know when you have that right one for you that truly understands the market and the community that you're looking to purchase within. They will be able to be a source of huge amounts of information for you to help guide you in making a well-informed decision. It is important to note that as a trusted real estate advisor, we are not able to answer the question legally about what's a safe area. The reason being that this is actually a violation of laws that govern us as real estate agents. We can't say what's safe for you is safe for another and what's safe for another is safe for you. It's a subjective opinion. It's a subjective analysis based upon the person making the decision. Now, what we can do as a trusted real estate advisor is provide you with any additional resources to help you make that decision, whether it's a crime map, whether it's a demographic report, whether it's school ratings, which we all know you can simply go to greatschools.org, and any more on most real estate agents' websites. They may have integrations that are into greatschools.org and other sources like walkability scores and stuff like that to help you make that decision for you. All the same, if you're missing some of those core details that are important to you, ask your trusted real estate advisor for a list of resources to help make a well-informed decision for you. All right, my friend, I hope that helps you decide whether buying the best home in the neighborhood is right for you and give you some thoughts to go into it, whether you want to do that or not go into that. So now let's talk about should you buy a fixer-upper house and how to find the ideal home for you. Looking forward to our next conversation. We'll see you in a few.